So Trump did an interview with NBC News, and he was asked about healthcare. And this is just humiliating, man. It's humiliating for every reason. So Trump obviously lies through his teeth, but then you also have, I don't think the NBC News anchor actually does the best job here. I think you got to be much more prepared if you're going to go in this direction. So let's watch, and then I'll break it all down for you.
They say it's no longer feasible to repeal and replace Obamacare because it's so entrenched in the system. Do you see it that way? Is that now off the table, repealing and replacing?
When John McCain let us down by voting, and Murkowski and Collins and whoever it was that voted against, but they really let us down. They did us a great disservice because we would have had great health. Obamacare is lousy health care. It's very expensive health care for the people. It's also expensive for the country, but for the people, it's lousy health care.
Let me just pause to point this out. Obamacare, was it the best reform? No. In fact, I'd go as far as to say it was probably the worst kind of reform you could do, feasibly, proposed by a Democrat at the time. Having said that, there is no comparison. After Obamacare, people were way better off than before Obamacare. That's just a fact. It's just a fact. Now, I prefer a single-payer Medicare for all system. That would be the best system, right? If you're not going to get that, okay, then I'd like a multi-payer system. All right, if you're not going to get that, then I'll take a public option, right? But there's a clear hierarchy here in the type of healthcare reform and how good it is. Obamacare was the least positive one. But having said that, people got protections for their pre-existing conditions, which was huge. Kids could stay on their parents' insurance until the age of 26, which was huge. You had Medicaid expansion, which gave a lot of people, lower middle-class people, healthcare. And overall, 50 million more people got covered, and a lot of people who needed subsidies got subsidies to afford their health insurance. So, not the best, but way better than what came before it, and way better than any Trump plan. More on that in a minute. Let's keep going.
Gave his thumbs down after saying for 10 years that he wants to repeal and replace, okay? And then he came out and put his now famous thumbs down, and he became a hero to the left. Let me tell you.
John McCain is not a hero to the left, and he never will be. Take that from me, somebody who's actually on the left and not Donald Trump.
If we find something better, I would love to do it. But one thing I have to say, I inherited Obamacare or anything else you want to go. It's got about 20 names, but I inherited it.
It's got two. The Affordable Care Act, which is the actual name, and Obamacare, which is what it's called for short. But it's classic Trump. It's got 20 names.
But I inherited it. And I had a decision to make with Health and Human Services. I had a big decision to make. Do I make it as good as we can make it, or do I let it rot? And a lot of political people said, let it rot and let it be a failure. I said, that's not the right thing to do. And I had very good people in the medical area that handled that. And I said, what do you want to do? He said, we really have an obligation to make it as good as we can. And we did. We made it as good as we can make it. Instead of making it bad where everybody would be calling for its repeal, I made it so that it works. Now,
it's a total lie. That's a total lie. He did try to let it rot. He also signed an executive order on the first day in office trying to screw Obamacare, but the court said you can't just do it via executive order. Then, of course, they tried to get it through in Congress, and it failed. But I'll give you his actual facts about his actual healthcare plan in a second, but he's not done yet. Here we go. Concepts of a plan is making a comeback.
But it's too bad that they voted no. I wish John McCain, he fought for 10 years on replacing Obamacare for 10 years, and then he voted against. Nobody understands
Sir, you said during the campaign you had concepts of a plan. Do you have an actual plan at this point for health care?
Yes, we have concepts of a plan that would be better.
Still just concepts? Do you have a fully developed plan?
Let me explain. We have the biggest healthcare companies looking at it. We have doctors. We're always looking because Obamacare stinks. It's lousy. There are better answers. If we come up with a better answer, I would present that answer to Democrats and to everybody else, and I do something about it. But until we have that, or until they can approve it.
There is a better answer. It's called single-payer Medicare for all. It's something that Trump flirted with in 2015 and 2016. He was asked on 60 Minutes what he would do about healthcare, and he would say, everybody's going to have healthcare and the government's going to pay for it. He said that. And then, of course, when he got in there, he did the exact opposite. He tried to repeal Obamacare, take health insurance away from people, and then he proposed a plan. I don't know why everybody memory holes this. The media memory holes this. Trump himself memory holes this. He talks now about concepts of a plan, but he proposed a health care bill in 2017 called the American Health Care Act, or Trump Care for short. According to the Kaiser Family Foundation, it had 8% support in the country, and the reason it was so universally despised is because it was nothing but a sloppy, wet blowjob to the health insurance industry, make them more powerful, give them more money, and it would get rid of your protections for pre-existing conditions by making it optional on a state-by-state basis. In the same way that the Republican states said, we don't want to expand Medicaid under Obamacare, which they did, they would say, we don't want to protect pre-existing conditions. That's what they would have done. So people knew the provisions of the bill were trash. It was a healthcare reform bill that wouldn't have given more people healthcare. I want you to think about how psychotic that is. Trump's idea of healthcare reform was, let's take healthcare away from more people. What the fuck? All right, let's keep going.
I am the one that saved Obamacare, I will say, and I did the right thing. I could have done the more political thing and killed it, and all I had to do is starve it to death.
You did try to have your Justice Department effectively kill it, though,
No,
sir.
kill it from a legal standpoint, but from a physical standpoint, I made it work.
In your concepts of a plan, sir, will people with pre-existing conditions still have coverage, and can you guarantee their prices will not go up?
The answer is yes.
That's a lie. He proposed a bill that got rid of protections for pre-existing conditions and made it so that each state can decide if they want to protect pre-existing conditions, and all the Republican states said no protections for pre-existing conditions. He's lying. Don't take my word on it. Go look at that bill. Go look at Trump Care. Go look at the provisions. That is one of the provisions of the bill.
And what about their
Because
prices?
you know what?
What about their prices, sir?
I want the prices to go down. I want to have better health care for less money. And there are ways of doing it.
Yeah, the only way of doing it is single-payer Medicare for all. And Trump's not going to do that because he's a cuck to the health insurance industry. He's a cuck to big money donors, and they would never allow that. Now, he keeps, I saved Obamacare. I saved Obamacare. Okay, let's look at his record. In Trump's first 3 years, 2 million Americans lost health care. I think when all was said and done, it was 3 million. Thousands died prematurely. A new analysis reveals that the number of Americans without health insurance increased by about 2.3 million between the years 2016 and 2019, the majority of President Donald Trump's current term in office. This drop in health coverage led to at least 3,399 and possibly as high as 25,180 premature deaths in the United States. These numbers show that health insurance in the United States was on the decline even before the arrival of the COVID-19 pandemic. The decline is a direct result of efforts by the Republican Party to repeal and limit aspects of the Affordable Care Act. 2.3 million people lost health insurance his first 3 years in office. I think when it was all said and done, it was about 3 million people lost health insurance. And regardless of the bones I have to pick with Obamacare, under Democrats, 50 million more people got health insurance. 50 million more people. So he's lying. He's lying through his teeth. I mean, the stuff he gets away with is mind-boggling to me. You got people like Piers Morgan who like to pretend like the media does such an effective job at like shutting down Trump. And it's like, are you fucking kidding me? These people are doing the political equivalent of like kabuki theater and playing patty cakes with the guy because they don't know how to resist him. They don't know what to say. So to Kristen Welker, who did that interview, I would say, why didn't you know these things when you went into it? When he repeatedly says, I saved Obamacare, and she goes, well, you tried to repeal it. And he goes, yeah, I wanted to change the law, but physically protect it. In other words, he's saying, like, get rid of the name, but still, fund the provisions that need to be funded. That's kind of what he's saying. You need to be able to say 2.3 million Americans lost health insurance in your first 3 years. You had a decline. Under Democrats, 50 million gained insurance. Up to 25,000 people could have died prematurely because they lost health insurance under you. And that's to say nothing of the 339,000 American lives that could have been saved during COVID if we just had universal health care. You got to know how to handle this guy. You got to know how to deal with it. This is why he's so slippery. He just gets away with so much shit. And if you didn't do your homework, again, this drives me crazy. You have concepts of a plan. Apparently Trump doesn't remember, and this journalist doesn't remember about the American Health Care Act and about the fact it gets rid of pre-existing conditions. I mean, for her to ask him, hey, would you protect pre-existing conditions? When he proposed a bill that got rid of it and she doesn't know that, it's unacceptable. None of these people know what they're doing. He's a brazen liar. Every time he opens his mouth, he's lying, and they don't know how to handle it. And that, it drives me crazy. It drives me crazy. Oh. And then, of course, conservatives will look at this and use this as, like, based Trump schooling the media or whatever. And, like, nobody cares about the actual information, the reality, and how people's lives were affected. And it's disturbing. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop. And watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.